There on the table behind me, called the Credence Table, is simply the place we keep everything that we need for the celebration of the Eucharist. The first thing that we see on the Credence Table is what is called the Lavabo Station, which is simply there for the priest to wash his hands before touching the bread and starting to work with the Eucharistic meal. So what happens is that the priest turns the Lavabo Station, and one of the servers is there ready with a jug of water and a little bowl. He pours water over the hands of the priest, who then dries them on the little towel that's on his arm. The use of the Lavabo Station is predominantly for hygiene. It goes back quite a long way. But it's interesting how something that starts for practical reasons starts gaining liturgical significance and symbolism. So in the Anglican Church of Nigeria, at that point when the priest is washing his hands, there's a small insert in the liturgy that talks about Pilate washing his hands of his guilt before the crowds as they shouted to him to crucify Jesus. So the Nigerian church has inserted that into their liturgy as a symbolic act representative of what Pilate did when Jesus was crucified. The next thing that's on the Credence Table is right behind me, which you can barely see, is what we call a Ciborium. The Ciborium is simply a place to keep the bread we're going to use for the Eucharist meal. In this case, what I have here is also a pyx, P-Y-X, which is simply a little bowl in which you keep wafers, if you're going to use wafers. And this is especially used if deacons are going to take communion elements to sick people or to others after they've been consecrated, which then comes from the community of the people to the sick person or the person bedridden at home or whatever. In our case here, we have two pyxes because this one has wafers that are gluten and allergen free, so that we can serve those to those who need. And those we put in a little pyx and consecrate with the rest of the meal on the table. So the central area, the Ciborium and the pyxes, take care of the bread we're going to use at the Eucharist meal. And on the other side is the wine and the water. These little bottles are called Cruets. Of course, one has wine and one has water. And you will notice that when the wine is poured into the chalice, a few drops of water are thrown in as well. There are various explanations for why that happened. The most ancient is apparently that this represents the blood and water that flowed from Jesus' side after the soldier had pierced him with the spear. Others have said the water represents our sins being diffused and disappearing into the blood of Christ. So there's all kinds of ways that symbolism has grown up around the simple act of putting the wine into the chalice ready for the Eucharistic meal. And that is how we celebrate the Eucharist when we do so in the formal way that has come down to us through the centuries.